Hey everyone, we are on day 2 of the legislative branch, and so we will be covering mostly the committee system today and some of the rules of the House and the Senate. So I will switch us over to our first slide. Start off with the powers of Congress. So powers of Congress, very limited number of powers. I showed you in the last unit real quick, and I'll do that again right now. But powers of Congress, in Article 1, Section 8, you find 17 specific things. When people look at the list of weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, some of the things that they could not do in the government there, a lot of those end up being, those weaknesses become things that are listed as powers for the new Congress with the Constitution. So let me just flip over and show you again, just real quick, the slides from the other day from federalism. That in Article 1, Section 8, it was just these. So there are 17 clauses, and then the 18th clause in Article 1, Section 8 is necessary and proper. So again, you just think of maybe some of the more important things like the power to tax, to regulate commerce. They can coin money, which was an issue under the Articles. You provide, establish post office again, as you don't think of that much, but promote science. So that could mean a lot of things. That could be extended to mean all kinds of things with medicine and other things. To declare war, obviously that's one of the big ones. To raise and support an army and a navy. And then the last few here, militia. We don't really think of militia anymore. Maybe National Guard or something. But we don't need a couple here dealing with militia. And so, you don't see there being a whole lot of powers listed. 17, and a lot of them just don't seem very significant in today's world. But this one here in bold at the end allows Congress to do a whole lot more, and that's what they sort of reaffirmed in McCulloch v. Maryland, was the Congress could do a lot of other things that maybe weren't listed here. So anyway, that is, let me get back out of this. That was from the last chapter. So just back to this legislative branch. So I'm not going to list those there, but just think of things like the power tax and declare war and others. Now, congressional committees. Committees are where most of the work actually takes place. It's if you have 435 members of the House, they're not going to get much done altogether. So you break them down into committees, and the Senate may get broken down in committees. And so you have 4 general types of committees. The ones that you would on a day-to-day basis hear about would be standing committees. So just for a quick definition, standing committees are permanent committees where most of the work gets done. In standing committees, the members of Congress will mark up bills or edit bills or revise them. Most bills that go, so a bill will get introduced into the, and we'll go in a day or two, we'll go over the bill to a law procedure, but a bill will get introduced to the House or the Senate, and then it will be assigned to a committee. So it'll go to a committee. Well, most bills die in committee. Most bills don't make it out of there. If a bill does make it out of there, it maybe has been changed in committee, and then it will be voted on in committee, it passes, and then it would go to the full House or the full Senate. So a standing committee is where most of the work gets done. I'll show you a list of those in a little bit. And so the one thing to know is on an AP test, the most important committee in the House that someone would want to be on is the Rules Committee. For one reason or another, I'll show you what that does in a second. But Rules Committee, now if it's not the Rules Committee as a possible choice on a test, then it's whatever one sounds like it's the most powerful committee. So there's a committee on Veterans Affairs, committee on Agriculture. Those are real committees, and those are important things, I guess. But you hear banking, finance, energy, armed services. Those are really big committees to be on, because if you're on sort of the right committee with powerful interest groups associated with it, they can give you lots of money to help in your reelection campaign, trying to basically bribe you to, maybe the oil company or something is hoping that if they give you money that you'll push through favorable legislation for them. And that can help you become a powerful representative, stay in office for a long time. So standing committees, though, are where most of the work gets done, even subcommittees within standing committees. So they don't do a lot of work in necessarily the whole House. Conference committees, If a bill goes through the House and the Senate, and it started off as the same bill, but there are two different versions of the bill, then the conference committee is just a temporary committee where House members and Senate members get together and they compromise on the bill. So conference committees do compromise versions of a bill, and then they'll send it back to the House and the Senate to be voted on as a whole. Select committees do investigations. So they would investigate things like Russian involvement in an election. Many years ago, they investigated steroids in baseball. They would investigate 9/11 or Watergate or different things. And so those would be temporary committees doing investigations. A joint committee, they can be temporary or permanent. They basically generally will do like research. So a joint committee does research, a joint committee on poverty or a joint committee on crime. And a joint committee just means House and Senate members, and they're doing research to see if there's legislation necessary to pass, if legislation is necessary in that topic. Seniority, the way you generally become the head of a committee is through seniority. But the way it works is, if you were on the Small Business Committee, the way you'd become the leader of the committee would be, you'd have to be in the majority party. So right now, if it was the House, you'd be a Democrat. You had to be a Democrat, right? And then your age doesn't matter, but it's who's in the majority party and has been on that committee the longest. So if one person's been in the House 40 years and been on a committee 10 years, and they're 80 years old, but another person from the same party has only been in the House 20 years, but has been in the committee 20 years, and they're 60 years old, they get to be the chairperson, even though they're younger and have been in the House in a shorter amount of time, but it's because they've been on the committee the longest. So that's how you become a leader of the committee. Just some of the powers, I'm not really going to go on, I won't focus on this at all, but I put this on my PowerPoint to show you how some of those powers worked. Now the last slide with notes here, sort of. So Iron Triangle. I'm going to go forward one and then back one, but Iron Triangle is basically trying to show you, it's a way to refer to the close connection between congressional committees, I should say at the top, bureaucracy, and interest groups. So the way you think of it is, I know we haven't been over agencies yet and really interest groups, but an interest group could be it could be gun lobby, it could be oil lobby, it could be there's any number. It could be a lobby like a pro-life group, or who knows. And so you have a congressional committee, and there is a committee on science and space, let's say. And some of you may have watched during right now we're in sort of a lockdown with the coronavirus. They launched sort of the Americans got sent into space to go to the space station really for the first time since the space shuttle was shut down, and at least on a U.S. built vessel. And so and Congress funded that a lot. So NASA would be the bureaucratic agency on the bottom right. The interest group would be the company that built the new spaceship, and then is that SpaceX maybe? I can't remember. And then there'd be that congressional committee on space travel and stuff. So the thinking would be the interest group would be a company that might build the new space shuttle version. And so they know that if they can get a law passed that's going to fund that project, then they'll make billions of dollars. So what they would do is they would lobby, they would try to get support to congressmen, sort of the red electoral support, but they would also fund their campaigns and so that'd be like helping them win an election. And then Congress would hopefully pass a bill funding maybe billions of dollars to NASA to work with this this group. I think it was SpaceX, to work with them to build the new space shuttle. So if they pass a funding bill, then NASA will it says special favors to the interest group. Maybe NASA then awards that group, that company, the new contract to help build the thing, and that could be billions of dollars. And so this is basically showing the close connection between the committee you're on, these bureaucratic agencies like NASA, or the EPA or something, and then the company or the interest group, how they work together. So, but back to this, the House has really strict rules. The House Rules Committee makes rules. An open rule is if there's a bill on the House floor, it can be amended but any amendments have to be related, or it's called germane. If the House passes a closed rule, then they can't amend the bill. They have to vote on it as is. In the House, every member, when they debate a bill, they're assigned a certain amount of time, like a minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes maybe, and they can't go past that. And any discussion on the bill has to be related to the bill. The Senate, on the other hand, allows unlimited debate. Bills can have unrelated amendments attached to them, and they're called riders. So in the Senate, you can talk as long as you want when it's your turn to debate, and you can talk about anything you want. In the House, they strictly keep you on task. You have a short amount of time because there's so many people. The Senate has has 100 versus 435, and it's seen as sort of the better of the two. And they want to allow senators to be able to talk as long as they want. And so if a senator doesn't want a bill to be voted on because he or she knows it's going to pass, they may try a filibuster. So this is an attempt to talk a bill to death. And they'll talk and talk and talk, and they could talk about anything just to hopefully push something off, force a compromise, or hope that the Senate then says, fine, we won't deal with this now, let's get on with business and do something else. If for some reason the vast majority of the Senate does want to shut them up, and they've changed this fraction some over the years, it was 2/3 before in the 60s, and now it's 3/5. But a cloture is a vote to end a filibuster, and so you have to have a minimum of 60 senators. So if there's more than, today, the way it works in practice today is if there are more than 60 on one side, the people in the minority generally don't even bother threatening a filibuster because they know they could be shut up. But anyway, so the longest filibuster ever was over 24 hours. I'll show you that list in just a second. Just a couple of definitions, though. Party polarization, so that's a vote or a topic in which basically all Republicans oppose all Democrats. It can be kind of similar to the impeachment of Trump. Gridlock is just, this happens a lot in today's world, that nothing gets done. And often nothing gets done if one house is one party and the other house is another party, or maybe the president's one party in the House and Senate are another party, so that nothing gets done. So gridlock is kind of like stuck in gridlock traffic. Nothing gets done in Congress. So I just wanted to show you, I got a couple minutes here in the list here, the 5 longest filibusters. This is kind of interesting. So the longest one was Senator Strom Thurmond, and so this is he was 24 hours and 18 minutes. He was opposed to a civil rights bill. And so that was in 1957. He was from South Carolina, and he spoke again over one day. Just spoke, he recited Declaration, Bill of Rights. George, you can read whatever you want, do anything. Read all kinds of stuff. Talked about his family trips and other things. But other people added to it, and so they actually went 57 days talking to kind of shut down the Senate. And then as soon as they were done talking, the Civil Rights Bill passed. So those would be Southern senators. And it says a second one here, 23 hours and 30 minutes about a military bill. Another person spoke here 22 hours and 26 minutes in 1953. In 1908, 18 hours and 23 minutes. And then this one here, 1981, 16 hours and 12 minutes. And so, they do any number of things. That basically they will talk about anything, family. They could talk about movies. They could, when somebody read the phone book before, they've had people read recipes. So anything just to delay a vote on the bill. Just to show you a list, so you know what I'm talking about with the committees. So in the House, there are currently 20 standing committees, and they list them here. So agriculture, appropriations is like how you're going to spend money. Armed services, budget, education and workforce, energy and commerce, ethics, financial service. Okay, you can read these. But Ways and Means, I should mention. Ways and Means is only in the House, and this is about tax bills. So this is a real important one too. So if you're a representative, there's some here like House administration, and I don't care about that. Right? Government reform, maybe, right? But you might want to be on financial services. I mean, that's a pretty big, important one. Banking. You might want to be on appropriation spending, armed services. A lot of money involved in those things. But anyway, so maybe you're interested in one of these. Maybe they're real important to your district, and you want to be on them. So anyway, I will stop there, and we'll get back to it tomorrow. Thank you.